What is going on, guys? What is going on, 27 squad? Welcome back into another video, and we are continuing our positional preview series for the 2020 New York Giants, and we're going to continue with the wide receivers. Now, if you missed the first two episodes, we discussed quarterbacks and we discussed running backs, so I'll leave the playlist card up above if you guys are interested in watching that. So let's get right on to the video. Before I start, guys, make sure you guys smash that like button for me. Let's help this algorithm out just a little bit. Just one like will help the algorithm so much more. So if a bunch of you guys were to like it, let's hit a goal of about 60 likes on this video. And so let's get started. The New York Giants wide receiving core. Now, a lot of people have gone on and said that this is a huge need for the New York Giants, and yes, while it is a need and I felt like it should have been addressed a lot better, I did not feel like we should have addressed the wide receiver position early on in this year's draft. I guess that really tells to how many holes the Giants really had, being that the wide receiving core isn't great. And so I was advocating against getting a wide receiver in this year's draft early. I was all for getting another one later to try to find another Darius Slayton type player, but we did not wind up drafting another wide receiver, which I'm okay with for the most part. I know next year, when it comes to free agency and when it comes to the draft, that the Giants probably should look at wide receiver potentially early in the draft or wind up getting a free agent wide receiver. But we look at this wide receiving core right now, and it's pretty top heavy. You look at the first few guys like Golden Tate, Sterling Shepard, and Darius Slayton. You gotta love these guys. Darius Slayton could find his way to being the #1 receiver later on in this year, in the 2020 season, with Sterling Shepard constantly suffering concussions and Golden Tate reaching up in his old age. I mean, he's not terribly old right now, but he's getting there, so I imagine he won't be the focal point of a passing game much longer in the NFL. Darius Slayton is just getting his season started, and we'll talk about him later as we shift over to the back half of the wide receiving core, and it's not great at all. And I would be hard pressed to tell you that it's fantastic and everything's gonna be okay. It is not. The wide receiving core, should our guys get hurt, is not gonna be great. It's actually worse than last year when it comes to depth. But I actually think that Golden Tate will be much better in our system. I actually think Darius Slayton for sure might eclipse 1,000 yards this season. And Sterling Shepard, hoping he's healthy, maybe he will have his first 1,000-yard season of his career. So let's get on with our first candidate, and we'll work our way down as we have a lot of guys to talk about. Let's start off with Golden Tate. He had 676 yards last season. Now, Golden Tate did violate the NFL's PED use policy, and that's why he was not able to play for the first 4 games of the NFL season, so he came out late, which is why his stats aren't as great as a lot of people thought it would be. I imagine if he played all 4 games, he might have eclipsed 1,000 yards, maybe close to it. We're talking like late 800s to 900s. I assume Golden Tate is going to be our #1 wide receiver this year. When the first depth chart comes out, I'm pretty sure he'll be the first name you'll see on that wide receiver depth chart. It's not to say that Darius Slayton is probably not better, but Golden Tate should be up there because of veteran experience, and then Sterling Shepard, it'll trickle down from there. So as far as Golden Tate goes, I think he's still a solid player. There's not much to say about Golden Tate. I think everybody knows about Golden Tate, and there's not too much to say there. All I can say is that he's been pretty consistent throughout his career, and I imagine he will remain so next year. We then move on to Sterling Shepard. Now, Sterling Shepard is quite difficult to discuss because we all have mixed emotions about Sterling Shepard. Now, last year or 2 years ago, or last year, I'm sorry, he signed a 4-year, $41 million extension, and I believe that starts this year. Actually, I think this is his 5th year, so it starts this year, and that's when he's really getting paid. Hopefully that will motivate him to play even better and reach that 1,000-yard mark. But something that's always been keeping Sterling Shepard from really reaching his potential after getting off to a great season was his injury. He has suffered multiple concussions in his NFL career, and who knows, it might not stop here, and he might be one of those players that are forced to retire due to concussions, as a couple of other players have in the past. Sterling Shepard, in my opinion, when he's healthy, he's one of the best slot receivers in the NFL. His route running is impeccable, dating all the way back to Oklahoma. I would always watch him on film when it came to his route running. His hands are great. He has very, very good speed and underrated speed for a receiver like him, a slot receiver that usually catches the ball, in soft zones and things like that. Sterling Shepard's a phenomenal player, and every year he always starts off great. You look at his rookie year, we are all extremely impressed by his rookie year. I believe he finished that year with like 6 or 8 touchdowns, somewhere around that range. He finished that year with 8 touchdowns, which is also what Darius Slayton also finished in his rookie year, and he actually finished with 683 yards opposed to Darius's 740. His best year by far, in my opinion, was 2017, where he only played in 11 games. He started 10, played in 11. He had 731 yards. He would have been well into 1,000 yards had he not got hurt in that 2017 season. He was playing out of his mind that year, but his best statistical season was in 2018, where he played all 16 games miraculously, and he had 872 yards with 4 touchdowns. The touchdowns weren't fantastic, but 872 yards in 16 games isn't great either, but his best statistical season. Sterling Shepard, in my opinion, if he stays healthy, should get somewhere close to 1,000 yards. I know Darius Slayton is going to be having a lot of yards this season as far as projected yards goes, but Darius Slayton's not going to have too many receptions just because he's a deep threat, so he's going to have a bigger average, not too many receptions, which won't take too many plays away from Sterling Shepard, who actually makes his money catching the ball a lot and making his yards that way. We then move on to our beloved Darius Slayton. Everybody's talking about Darius Slayton and what he's potentially going to do next year after having the season that he had as a 5th round draft pick out of Auburn. He, I believe, finished with 58 receptions, and I'm just going off the top of the head here. 58 receptions, 740 yards, and 8 touchdowns. He also led rookie wide receivers in touchdowns with 8 touchdowns and really exceeded expectations as far as what the Giants thought he was going to be and what the Giants fans thought he was going to be. I remember watching his film out of Auburn, and I hated it. It was disgusting. I didn't like his film out of Auburn. He didn't catch anything. He caught like 50% of his targets. It was really, really bad, and I didn't believe him. I didn't believe in him at first, and I can't lie to you guys on that, but he really showed up. He really went to practice. He really focused on his game, and as the Hub says, you got to give the props to Tyke Tolbert, the wide receivers coach, who I believe was also Odell Beckham's wide receiver coach back in LSU and with the Giants. This guy really transformed Darius Slayton's game, made him a better route runner, made him a better receiver as catching the ball, and just made everything better for Darius Slayton, and I'm extremely excited to see what he's going to do next season. And I project Darius Slayton to potentially have 1,000 yards this season, be our best receiver, because Sterling Shepard can't stay healthy, and Golden Tate is getting up there in age, and I think Golden Tate's well past his prime. So that being said, I think Darius Slayton, this is his time to really take over the wide receiving core and become that #1 threat for the New York Giants. We now move on to Cody Coleman. Now, Cody Coleman is a guy that last year was supposed to come in and be our #3 wide receiver because Darius Slayton was having injury issues in the beginning of the year in training camp in the preseason, so he wasn't able to compete the way he wanted to. But Benny Fowler and Cody Coleman were competing for that #3 wide receiver spot, and it looked to me and it looked to everybody else that Cody Coleman was well on his way to winning that wide receiver spot, the #3 wide receiver spot for the 2019 New York Giants. And remember, this is a guy that was a 1st round pick out of Baylor to the Cleveland Browns, who I didn't really think he was a 1st round pick in my honest opinion. The guy just ran curl routes and go routes, and I didn't think he was going to be a fantastic receiver in the league, and I wound up being proven correct. But I honestly think for the value that we have him for, he's not being paid a lot. He's not getting paid 1st round pick money. I like Cody Coleman, especially as a return specialist. I think he's going to do most of his damage in special teams. And if he can contribute to the offense, then I would love that. But the problem is, similar to Sterling Shepard, the injuries. It's very hard for me to imagine Corey Coleman on this team because he cannot stay healthy. He wasn't healthy with the Browns. He wasn't healthy with the Bills. He wasn't healthy with the Giants. What makes you think he's going to be healthy this year? If he is, that's fantastic. I hope he does have health. But the thing is, as past occurrences reminded us, he is not a healthy wide receiver. He does not stay healthy. He's very injury prone. And so obviously you could label him a bust, but I still think he could contribute to a team when healthy. And I would love to see him as a special teams returner for us, and that would just help our special teams even more. We then move on to another special team standout from the wide receiver position, and that is Cody Core. He's one of my favorite Giants this year. Why? Because he does his job so well, not as a wide receiver, but as a gunner on special teams. That's what I really envision Cody Core as. I don't even imagine him catching passes this year for the offense unless the Giants are really short on people. He's not a fantastic receiver, and I know I sound crazy in saying this, but this guy could really be the next Matthew Slater of the New York Giants. Matthew Slater, as you guys know, is one of the best special teams players, one of the best special teams gunners that the New England Patriots have had, and probably one of the best special teams gunners in the NFL in its history, along with guys like Dwayne Harris as well, who was really great for us as a gunner in his time with the Giants and the Dallas Cowboys, and also a great return specialist too. But Cody Core, his work that he's done along with Riley Dixon, the teamwork that they've displayed last year, pinning the ball inside the 5, inside the 10, inside the 1 on many occasions, really excelled this special teams and really made the special teams look a lot better than it was. I mean, the special teams was great, but a huge part of that, I'm talking like 85% of that, was because of Cody Core and his ability to get down the field and pin the ball down, and when the ball is caught by the kick returner or punt returner, him being able to secure the tackle. Cody Core is one of the best special team players in the NFL, and I think he stays that way this year, and that's where I think he's going to mostly contribute. Now let's get on to the nitty gritty. We have a couple of players, matter of fact 6 players to discuss that are new Giants receivers. Let's first start off with David Sills V, the former quarterback turned wide receiver out of West Virginia. Now, he had a chance with the Buffalo Bills as a rookie undrafted free agent. That did not work out, and I like David Sills. I liked him out of West Virginia. I watched him, and the amount of production he was able to put out there as a former quarterback turned wide receiver is actually insane. If you watch this guy, his highlights and his film, I mean, it's actually insane to think that he just, in a blink of an eye, just turned from quarterback to wide receiver, and it was dominant on that level. Now, I don't know if he's going to succeed in the NFL. He does have a legitimate chance to competing on this roster because, like I said, it's very top heavy. Anybody can make the final 2 spots of the roster. It's not that hard to do, especially if Corey Coleman doesn't remain healthy for the rest of the season. So David Sills really has a shot, really has an opportunity. I just don't know if he will get there. There are plenty of other players, including 2 Ohio State players that I have as better than him. Let's move on to those guys. Let's talk about Binjimen Victor. Binjimen Victor is one of the guys that the Giants have been looking for. A taller wide receiver. He's 6'4", 190 pounds. 199 pounds. I'm sorry. He is very slim for his height. He definitely needs to bulk up at least 10 pounds. He needs to put on at least 10 pounds for me to, actually consider him as a threat to making this roster, as a candidate to really making this roster. But he had success in Ohio State, and I was surprised this guy was not drafted. He had good film. I liked what I saw from him. My only problem is that he doesn't really use his height to advantage. He reminds me a lot of Corey Washington, where he was aggressive and he used his height just a little bit because obviously he is taller than most of these defensive backs, so he's able to reach higher and grab the ball, and he was successful sometimes. But in my honest opinion, I want you catching, the 50-50 balls. I want you catching the back shoulder passes. I want you catching fades in the red zone. I want you, going up the seam and catching over a linebacker or a safety. I want you doing that as a 6'4" wide receiver, and Binjimen Victor doesn't seem like he has the ability to do that. Maybe he's I don't know, afraid of contact, but he really can't beat press, especially standing at 199 pounds at 6'4", very lanky guy, cannot beat the press whatsoever. I've seen it myself. He definitely needs to work on that, and I'm not giving him a great shot to make the roster just because of what I've seen, but I have a feeling the Giants might take a chance on him just because they've been looking for a taller receiver for, years now. It dates back to, after we let go of Hakeem Nicks. The next receiver we move on to is Austin Mack. Now, Austin Mack, I love him. I think he's more of a fit in the NFL than Binjimen Victor just because Austin Mack has the ability to catch in traffic. He catches those tight balls in tight coverage. And part of the reason is because he does not force a lot of separation. He can't separate from defensive backs, which is a bad thing, and which worries me going into the NFL. But in my honest opinion, I think Austin Mack has better hands, better route runner as well. I think he can have success in the NFL. My only problem is, how is he any different from a Sterling Shepard? How is he any different from a Golden Tate? And how is he any different than a Darius Slayton? These are guys that make their money doing the same thing that Austin Mack does. So how can he differentiate himself to try to elevate himself on the roster is going to be a question. I just think the Giants have too many of the same type of players, and that's why Austin Mack might not make the roster, but I love Austin Mack's game. Now, he was not as great a receiver in college as Binjimen Victor, as Binjimen Victor had more receptions, yards, touchdowns, average, everything. But Austin Mack was kind of the second fiddle there. But Austin Mack still played well at Ohio State, and I like him as a player. Next, we move on to Derrick Dillon, the wide receiver out of LSU. This guy runs a 4.28 40-yard dash. He's extremely fast, blazing speed, but the only problem is he doesn't really play well. He's had 15 receptions last year, and as far as I see on film, he's never looked in the direction of Justin Jefferson, just stole all the reps. Even with his blazing speed, he just never got open. I don't know if the offense wasn't, predicated around him, or they were using him in a certain way, but it seemed like every time he ran a route, he was very lazy in running the route. Not because that's just how he is, it just seemed like he knew he wasn't getting the ball. That's exactly what it looked like all the time. Like, he could be running in the slot, and after he cuts on his route, he just stops running because he knows the ball is thrown and it's not thrown his way. It seems like he just knows that the plays aren't designed around him and the plays aren't designed for him. So he's just a guy to throw out there on the field, and I'm kind of questioning why LSU didn't really use his top end speed. But Derrick Dillon, I don't imagine him making this roster. We have a speedy guy. Darius Slayton is our guy there, and unless Derrick Dillon really figures out a way to be consistent in the passing game, not just running very fast, someone that can catch the ball and run decent routes as you're supposed to do in the NFL, I don't imagine Derrick Dillon even cracking this roster or even being close to it. But time will tell. We will see. We next move on to Alex Bachman, or Bachman. I don't really know how you pronounce that name, but he's coming out of Wake Forest. Now we have two wide receivers on the roster, and I like Alex Bachman. I'm just going to call him Alex because I don't know if I butchered his last name, but Alex really impressed me out of Wake Forest. He catches a lot of 50-50 balls, man. He has great hands, I'll tell you that right now. He's not the most avid route runner. I don't think he's the greatest route runner, but he does catch the ball when the ball is thrown to him. He high points the ball very well. He catches the ball in traffic. He has great toes. He's able to get that toe tap drag swag in there that he displayed in college. So I like Bachman, or Bachman, but like I said, does he provide anything else that the Giants don't already have in their top three wide receivers? He's going to have to figure that out because he's not the tallest guy. I believe he's somewhere in the 6 foot range, but he's not like extremely tall or anything, something that these other wide receivers don't have. Next, we move on to our last receiver, is Amba Etta-Tawo. Yes, he has made his reoccurrence with the Giants after playing in the AAF, I believe, and also in the XFL. Amba Etta-Tawo is a guy that the Giants and Giants fans are really just want to see develop. We want to see this guy make the roster. Now, he's not the tallest wide receiver. He's 6'1", but the way his play style is may fool you. He goes up and gets the ball. He high points the ball. He has long arms. He plays a lot bigger than he is, similar to one Dez Bryant. Dez Bryant is only 6'2". He doesn't play like he's just 6'2". He goes up and gets the ball, catches the 50-50 balls, and Amba Etta-Tawo does the same. That's his play style. The problem is he never gets consistent. The problem is he's not able to ever crack the roster when it's time to do that. He always impresses in practice, he always impresses in the preseason, but he does not show up when trying to crack the roster. And so we'll see what happens with Amba Etta-Tawo. I'm rooting for him. I want to see him do well. On top of that, he also has injury issues as well, if I'm not mistaken. So I mean, we'll all see how that comes into play. And like I said, those 6 wide receivers I just mentioned all have a legitimate shot at cracking the roster just because of how just top heavy we are. We have no depth whatsoever. So these guys, we're going to see at least one of these undrafted guys make the roster. I can guarantee you that, whether they're rookie undrafted free agents or second year for undrafted free agents like Bachman and Sills, we may see one of these guys crack the roster. So let's take a look at the projected depth chart. As you guys can see, I have Golden Tate, Sterling Shepard, Darius Slayton, Coleman, Cody Core, and of course, I threw in Binjimen Victor there as well. I had 6 wide receivers making the roster, and so that seems to be what a lot of teams are doing now. I know that the NFL now allows 55 players on an active roster, but I don't know if the Giants are going to, give another spot to a weak wide receiving core. It may make sense to do so just because it is a weak wide receiving core and you want to see more guys get a shot, but I just don't envision it happening. I think they'll stick with 6, and I have Binjimen Victor making the roster just because of his height, and he provides something different that he would automatically be the tallest receiver on the team. So I imagine they might work him out, in the red zone and for catching those 50-50 balls when they really need him on third downs and things like that. He just really needs to bulk up and learn how to beat the press. But other than that, guys, that is the wide receiver preview. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. Who did you guys want to make the roster? Who did you guys don't want on the roster? If you agree with my projected depth chart or not. With all that being said, I'll see you guys in the next video.